My name is Kate, and I'm 40 years old. I've been married to my husband, Mason, for 10 years. He's the same age as me, and we used to work together in the same department before moving to different branches. Mason is a responsible man who's well liked by his team. He can be a bit proud and doesn't like showing any weakness. He used to be very confident and masculine, and everyone at work admired him. He was expected to be promoted without any trouble. I'm the opposite, quiet and shy. I was surprised when he showed so much interest in me since we have such different personalities. After dating for 2 years, he proposed to me with a big bouquet of roses. I had never felt so loved by a man, so I immediately said yes and looked forward to starting a great life together. But then, things took a turn. We ended up living with his parents, which I wasn't expecting. I wanted to say no, but Mason insisted, saying his parents were good people and that they were really excited to have me live with them. I couldn't refuse. For the past 10 years, I've lived with his parents, and it's been really tough. Every morning, my mother-in-law would complain, "Kate, you forgot to clean the entrance again," she'd say, even after I'd already made breakfast for everyone. I would apologize, but she'd reply, "Just saying sorry isn't enough, go clean it now." Even though I had to go to work, I was treated like a servant in the mornings. I had to wake up at 5 a.m. to cook breakfast and clean, while my mother-in-law, who didn't work, didn't help at all. I'd rush through everything, go to work, come home, and immediately start making dinner. By the time I went to bed, I was completely exhausted. This daily routine drained me, and I became weak and sick. I think it was all the stress. My mother-in-law would continue to criticize me, saying things like, "Do the cleaning properly so the neighbors don't think we're neglecting it." She'd say this while sitting in the living room, eating the breakfast I made. "If you don't hurry, you'll be late for work," she'd add. Throughout all of this, Mason never defended me. His father would pretend not to notice, hiding behind his newspaper. Living with my in-laws has been terrible. The stress made me lose so much weight that I started to look unhealthy. My period stopped, and I couldn't get pregnant. Despite this, my mother-in-law kept blaming me for everything. Before marriage, I was healthy and cared about my appearance. Now, I looked different, and I didn't even recognize myself. The stress and the shock of my reflection made me feel depressed, and I became completely submissive to my mother-in-law. I lost all motivation to leave the house. Then, I received the news that my father had suddenly passed away in an accident. I hadn't visited my parents in a long time because Mason and his mother would criticize me for wanting to go. I regret not seeing him more before he passed away. My parents' home is about an hour's drive from my in-laws' house, so it's not far. I asked if they would come to my father's funeral, but they refused. When I told them about it, they quickly cut me off, saying, "Just have your family there," without even letting me finish. I was shocked by how cold they were. I simply said, "I understand," though I was angry and sad. At the funeral, many people came because my dad had many connections. They all showed how much he was loved. When I saw my mother, she was shocked by how much weight I had lost. She asked if I was sick, worried that I might be seriously ill. I assured her I was fine, but the stress of everything had taken a toll on me. After calming her down, I decided to tell her the truth about what had been happening at home. I explained how my mother-in-law had been treating me, and how I had been feeling exhausted. I told her it was like being bullied by my in-laws. She gave me a piece of paper, my father's will. It said that I was going to inherit $790,000. The money was mine to decide how to use. I was stunned by the amount but also felt hopeful. With this inheritance, I could finally leave my in-laws' house and build a life for myself away from the stress. When I got back home, I did the usual chores, thinking about the money and my desire to leave. I wanted to talk to Mason about it. That night, when we were alone, I brought up the inheritance. When I told him how much I was inheriting, he was shocked but happy. Then, before I could suggest anything, he said something that shocked me even more. "We need to transfer that money to my mom's bank account." I was confused. "Why? I inherited it, so it's mine." He got angry and slammed his hand on the table, saying, "A wife's money belongs to her mother-in-law." I couldn't believe what he was saying. I was scared. The next morning, both Mason and his mom approached me, demanding that I give them the inheritance money. "But it's mine," I protested. They insisted I transfer it to my mother-in-law's account. It felt like they were determined to take it, no matter what. I was so tired of fighting. Then Mason showed me a divorce paper and said, "If you don't change your mind, I'll divorce you." He had already signed the divorce papers. He told me to go back to my parents' house, and if I apologized, he might reconsider. I was stunned, holding the divorce form, realizing that I had never truly been supported in this house. I had been paying my share of living expenses and doing all the housework, yet Mason and his mother always looked down on me. They even tried to take my father's inheritance. I knew that if I stayed, I might give in to their pressure and hand over the money, but this inheritance was my father's gift to me, and I wasn't going to let them take it. With the signed divorce papers in my hand, I realized I now had control over my future. I swore to myself that I wouldn't give up the inheritance and made up my mind to act. After work that day, I went to my mother's house. "Welcome home, sweetie," my mother greeted me with a warm smile. She had made a home-cooked meal, and I was so moved by the taste of her food. It had been so long since I had enjoyed a meal prepared by someone else. As I ate, I cried because it tasted so good. I told my mother about everything that had happened with Mason and his mom. She was shocked, but told me, "The inheritance is yours, and you have the right to decide how to live your life from now on." She comforted me as I cried. After staying with my mom for a week, I decided to go back to my in-laws' house. "Well, I'm going now," I said. "Take care," my mother replied. I was no longer afraid of going back. With a clearer mind, I returned to my in-laws' house. Mason and his mother were waiting for me, arms crossed. "Have you thought about what you did?" they asked. "Yes, I'm sorry. Please let me live here again," I apologized, but it was insincere. My mother-in-law smirked. "Then hurry up and give us the inheritance," she demanded. I lied and told them the inheritance process was taking longer than expected, that it could take up to 6 months or more. They seemed satisfied, thinking I would eventually give them the money. As soon as I returned, they started criticizing me for the house being messy. "You didn't do your duties as a wife. Clean up quickly." The house had only been messy for a week, but it was filthy. It was impressive how dirty it had gotten in such a short time. The old me would have been devastated by the state of the house, but now, I didn't care. I just did what they asked without complaining. 10 months later, it was my mother-in-law's birthday. As usual, she was going on a trip, and of course, they didn't take me with them. "Have you received the inheritance yet?" my mother-in-law asked. "It should arrive today," I lied. "Well, that's perfect. The $790,000 is a gift for my mom. Make sure to transfer it to her account before we return." I knew the inheritance wouldn't arrive so soon, but I didn't say anything. I just smiled and saw them off, saying, "Take care and have a safe trip." Once they were gone, I finally put my plan into motion. I had been waiting for this moment for a long time. They would be shocked when they came back, but it no longer mattered to me. I quickly packed my things and moved out of my in-laws' house. Using my father's inheritance, I built a beautiful new home. I invited my mother to live with me, and we were both so happy to finally be free from the constant stress. That night, we celebrated our new home with a special meal prepared by a chef. The next day, I got a call from my ex-husband. "Hey, what's going on?" he asked, confused because all my things were gone. "I'm not coming back. Goodbye." I tried to hang up, but I could hear my mother-in-law yelling on the other end. "What do you think you're doing? Where are you?" she screamed. "I don't need to answer that. You told me to clean the house, so I packed my things. It's not funny. And by the way, you still haven't transferred the inheritance. How many times do I have to tell you that your money is mine?" she shouted. "I'm single now," I said. When I said that, my mother-in-law went silent. "I'm divorced. I signed the divorce papers Mason gave me. We're strangers now. Goodbye." I hung up, laughing as I felt a huge weight lifted off my shoulders. After that, my ex-husband called many times. When I had the chance, I answered and let him and my mother-in-law yell at me. I recorded those calls to use as evidence of their harassment. I knew it wasn't uncommon for ex-husbands to be abusive, and I planned to report them to the police. The police acted quickly, visiting my ex-in-law's house to issue a warning. It was embarrassing for them, especially since my ex-husband had a high position at work. His colleagues, who didn't like him, spread rumors about him. Eventually, even people from my work heard about it. I told my colleagues, yeah, I'm divorced. The bullying from my mother-in-law and my ex-husband's abuse was too much. I made sure others overheard, and soon, the gossip spread further. My ex-husband's boss heard about it and wasn't happy. "You've got a lot of bad rumors going around," his boss said. "I decided to transfer you." His transfer was to a branch with the worst performance, a remote area with no entertainment or anything fun. It was clear that his career had fallen apart, and there was no chance for promotion anymore. As for my ex-mother-in-law, she was devastated by her son's fall from grace. She became reclusive and eventually developed depression. It seemed she also had dementia and often caused disturbances at home. My ex-father-in-law had to care for her, despite their strained relationship. It felt like justice for everything they had put me through. Now, my mom and I are living happily together. We even started gardening in our spacious yard, something I never would have done if I was still in that house. Gardening has become a new hobby that has brought me joy and health, something I didn't have before due to the stress. I'm so happy to have cut ties with my ex-in-laws and to be living a peaceful, fulfilling life now.